Good evening. We're going to start our Zoom meeting and we're going to go over chapter 3. I'll try to point out the highlights of chapter 3. So give me a second here while I go into the chapter. Okay, so let's take a look at chapter 3 in our textbook. And it starts off with ¿Qué haces? What do you do? What, in a sense, what do you like to do? Talk a little bit about activities that you engage in your tiempo libre, in your free time. So a lot of chapter 3 will be talking about things we like to do in our spare time. Do we like to exercise, read, dance, various activities? So let's move on. Okay. So let's start off here with comunicación. What do you want to take away from this? Okay. So again, you'll be talking about things you like to do. And one of the main parts of comunicación will be learning how to talk about the time. How do you ask someone, what time is it? And how do you tell the time? So we want to be able to do that in this chapter. So let's move on here and look at a few things here. Before you ask somebody a question, and this is what they want to point out here, you may want to ask someone a question. How do you get someone's attention in Spanish? And often you'll use this word disculpa, from disculpar, like excuse me. Okay, and it's an AR verb, disculpar, and normally just be aware that if you ask somebody or you tell somebody, excuse me, you're giving them a command, okay? So you are giving a command to somebody, to a you, and you may want to give a familiar command to friends and family. The to form would be disculpa. That's all they're showing you here. And they're also showing you the verb oír. So oye is like, listen to me, okay? And so that's another way of calling out someone's attention. Oye, okay? Kind of like listen up in English. In English, it would be maybe less polite. Not in Spanish, it's totally okay to use it. Okay, what about let's take a look more though at disculpar. I think it's a little more important and used more in Spanish to get someone's attention. What about the usted form? What if you're talking to the formal you? It will be disculpe, and that's what they're showing you here. I just want to point this out so you're aware of it. And then you might want to call on, people might be in a group and you might want to know what time it is, and you might want to tell them. It's a plural you, excuse me, and you would use disculpen. And so I wanted to point out this to you because we're at an early point in Spanish, and this may crop up on a test. So be aware that there's 3 different ways to say excuse me using disculpar. You can use the to form, disculpa. You can use the usted form, disculpe, if you're going to be more formal with the person, say you don't know them. Or if there's a group of people, you would use disculpen. Okay. All right. And then how do we ask the time? Here it is. You should be aware now of your question words. K. And K means what? And when it's written, it's accented. So K means what? Hora is hour, but we look at more like time. What time? And then S, okay, is the conjugation of the verb ser, and es is the he, she, usted, and it's the is form of the verb ser, to be. So this question is asking ¿Qué hora es? And notice that when we ask questions in Spanish and we write them down, we begin with an upside down question mark and end with a right side up question mark. So, ¿Qué hora es? That is your question. That's how you would ask somebody, what time is it right now on the clock? And that's all it means. All right. And then now, how do you give the time? Here the person answers back, son las cinco. They're saying it's 5 o'clock. So how do we give the time? And again, the way we tell the time in Spanish is we use the verb to be, okay? All right. Then we use the definite article the. You've got to have the in it. And then you give me the hour, the actual number. Is it 5? Is it 6 o'clock? Is it 4 o'clock? Is it 12 o'clock? And so that is how we give the time. So let's see how they answer here. Someone asked, ¿Qué hora es? What time is it? How do you answer back? Well, it's 5 o'clock, let's say. So how would you answer back? You use the verb to be, and you conjugate it in the plural form, in the they form. Look, son, okay? Las, there's your definite article. You always have to have a definite article when giving the time. If you don't put it in there, you're going to get it marked wrong. And so I'm just telling you, include your definite article and then give the number. If it's 5 o'clock, cinco, you should know your numbers now all the way up through 30. So you should be able to give times on the clock. So they ask ¿Qué horas? And you answer back with the verb to be. Son las cinco. You now, why is it son? It says, what time is it? Now, and in this case, what you're really answering back, son las 5 horas. But people don't say that. They don't say son las 5 horas, but that's in actuality what they're saying. Okay, they're plural hours. They're more than one. So what they're saying is son las 5 horas. So that is why ser is plural. Literally, you're saying there are 5 hours, or they are 5 hours. So you have to use son. You wouldn't use es. Never would you use S. You ask with S because you're saying what time is it, or is singular. But if you think about the time, it's usually going to be plural hours from 2 to 12. Those are all plural. So from 2 to 12, you're going to answer back with son. Then you have to have the definite article. Now, why is it las? Because again, you're really saying son las 5 horas. Horas is what? What's its gender? It's feminine. You should all know that. And it's plural. So what is the feminine plural definite article? Las. Now you see why you answer back. If it's 5 o'clock, you would say son las 5. You don't put the horas in. You could if you wanted to. I'm just telling you that it's there, and that's why. So if you were to have answered this son 5, wrong. You've got to have, they say it is the 5, it is the 12, it is the 1:30. They have to have the in there. And the is always the feminine the. And from 2 to 12, it's always the plural feminine the. What about 1 o'clock? Now, if someone asks you, ¿Qué hora es? And it's 1 o'clock, you don't answer back with son. because you've only got 1 hour. You answer back with es. Now it would be es. Now you gotta have your definite article. What is the feminine singular definite article? It's la. Es la una or es la una hora. And that's it. And that's the way you give the time. So again, here are the other times now from 2 to 12. Son las dos, son las tres, son las cuatro. Okay, any problem with that? I think it's pretty easy. Look through it. And so somebody may ask you, excuse me, what time is it? Again, if they're going to use the to form with you, if it's friends or family, it would be disculpa. And the question is, ¿qué hora es? Okay. Here it's the formal you, disculpe, ¿qué hora es? Okay. Here's some more terms that you may need to know. Noon is mediodía. Okay. So we can say it is noon. Someone might ask you, ¿qué hora es? And if it's noon, you could just say, es mediodía. Or noon is also 12 o'clock del día, of the day. So you could say, son las 12 del día. Usually I hear more son las 12, las 12 del día. You might say midnight. You can also say midnight, medianoche, okay, or you could say son las 12 de la noche. Son las 12. So you can use that 12 thing again. So if it's midnight, someone asks you qué hora es, you could say es medianoche or son las 12 de la noche. Okay. What if if you want to give now the time from, let's say, the hour up until the half hour, you add on the minutes, and that's all they're showing you here. So let's say that it's 1:30. So somebody asks you, ¿qué hora es? You're going to add on the minutes. You have to add on those 30 minutes. How do you add on the 30 minutes? There's a new word for us, and it's E, the Y. It means and. That's how we add them on. So to give the time, if somebody asks you ¿qué hora es? And it's 1:30, we don't say son, we would say es. Now we have to have a definite article, la una y media. I'm sorry, la una y 30. You add on the 30 minutes. But another way to say 1:30 is also 1:30, la una y media. Media means half. If it was 1:05, if it was 1:05, you would say es la una y cinco. If it's 15 after, is es la una y quince. Or you can also use this term cuarto, a quarter past, es la una y cuarto. So whenever you want to add minutes onto the hour, you use that magical word y and then add on the minutes. Again, you should know, you now have enough numbers where you can give time. Okay, here's another thing that you should know. So for times up to the half hour, we add on the minutes, okay? So if we would say it's 2:05, 2:10, 2:25, 2:30. In each case, we would say son las 2:05, las 2:10, las 2:15, las 2:25, las 2:30. But what about the times after the half hour? Okay, and there's different ways to do this. We could use E, all right, but we have to be able to count beyond 30. So if we want to say that it's 2:50, we would say son las 2:50. If it's 2:40, son las 2:40. There's another way to do it as well. Let's say that it's 2:50. Son la, here, let's use the example they give us here. Here they give us an example where it is son las 8:50. it's 8:50. Okay, so 8:50 would mean that it's 10 minutes to 9. Okay, all right. So we could also state that in another way. We would say son las 9. We round up the 10 minutes, and then we use this magical word menos, minus 10. And finally, we could also say that it's, and I wish they had used these at the same times here, but let's say, so let's just look at the first example here. We'll work with it one more time real quickly. If it's 8:50, okay, so now we're no longer in the first half of the clock. We're now past the half hour. We add on the minutes. And so we would say son las 8:50. It's 10:50. But 10:50 is also the same as what? 10 to 9. So what they would do in Spanish here is they would say it is 9 minus 10 minutes. Son las 9 menos 10 minutos. You don't have to say minutos. You can also say that same time, it's 10 to 9. 10 minutes to 9 would be son 10 minutos para las 9. But you always have to have that definite article las before the digit. Okay, let's move on. You should be able to look at these different representations of the time and select the correct answer, okay? Just real quickly, when you're giving the time, the time up until noon, the morning time, you would add on for AM or in the morning is de la mañana. Mañana means morning. So if it's 10 in the morning, you would say, someone asks you, ¿Qué hora es? You answer back, son las 10 de la mañana. You just tacked it on. If it's in the evening, say it's 10 in the evening, someone asks you, ¿Qué hora es? You would say, son las 10 de la noche, in the evening. And if it's in the afternoon, between noon and 6, and someone asks you what time it is, and it's 6 in the afternoon, you would say son las 6 or de la tarde. Or maybe it's 4 in the afternoon, son las 4 de la tarde. De la madrugada is in the early morning. So before 6 in the morning, you could also say that. Someone asks you what time it is, say it's 2 in the morning, you would say son las 2 de la madrugada. Okay. I just wanted to go through that quickly with you. You need to look at the time and spend a little time with it. And they give you some language here. Just look at it to talk about the time. Here's an important word. Horario is schedule. It's derived from hora. So somebody might ask you, ¿cuál es tu horario, or cómo es tu horario? What's your schedule like? You might want to be able to and should be able to describe a schedule. Okay. And how often do you do something? Once, una vez, or do you do it 2 times a week, 2 veces a la semana, or do you always do it siempre? I'm just quickly going through this. All right. Okay, let me see. Okay, so now we're getting into another question here, and it has to do with time. Please pay attention to this. Look at this question. ¿A qué hora te levantas? And I'll explain what te levantas means. You're asking, at what time? Look at that A. That means at. It can mean to or at. Here it means at. At what time? ¿A qué hora do you get up? Do you get up? That's what they're asking. Oh, okay. And so, and then they give you a little exercise here, and they ask people, ¿a qué hora te levantas? What time do you get up? And the people answer. All right. Now, so what we want to learn now is a totally new question. Please look at it and pay attention to it because it's really simple, but it's real easy to get it wrong if you don't pay attention. Our first question in comunicación today, our signature question was asking what time is it right now? And that was what? ¿Qué hora es? That's the signature question. That's how you ask the time. What time is it right now? What does your watch, your clock, your phone say? What time is it right now? That's what you want to know. That's what ¿Qué hora es means. Now, here's a totally new question. And it has, pay attention, the letter A or A before the ¿Qué hora? And again, that means at what time. Okay. So the second one is asking you, at what time do you do something? At what time does a class take place? At what time is the game? At what time is the TV program? It wants to know the time when an event is going to occur, or when the time that at which you do something. It's not ¿Qué hora es? It's ¿A qué hora es? Okay. So when you use ¿A qué hora es? When you're asked a question with ¿A qué hora es? You answer back a little differently than when the question is ¿Qué hora es? Okay. So first, let's take a look at some of these sentences. Here it says, Jorge entra en clase. So entrar means to enter. So Jorge enters class or in class. And then notice how they give the different times. He enters in class at a certain time. So notice that all these answers have to have an A in front of them. So we put an A in front of them. And then we put the definite article, las, because all of these times here are greater than one. And so Jorge entra a la clase, for example, a las 7. Now we add on the 30 minutes with y 30. Or we could say y media if we wanted to. De la mañana. So Jorge enters class at 7:30 in the morning. We could say Jorge enters class at 8 in the morning. Jorge entra en clase a las 8 de la mañana. Okay. So whenever you're stating the time at which an event occurs, put in the at or a before the reference to the time. So all such questions would be answered back a las and then the time, or a la if it's 1 o'clock, a la una, sorry. Oh yes, I wanted to mention too, 1 o'clock is feminine. So again, if you want to say it is 1 o'clock, you would say es la una, because you're modifying what? Horas or hora, es la una hora. And remember, the number 1 is gender sensitive. 1, when it's before a feminine noun, changes from uno to una. That's why you always would say la una, never el una. Okay. All right. Real quickly. All right. And so here's some questions. Students are going to ask, when does a place open? At what time does a place open? At what time does a place close? And so here is an example. Someone says, Oye, ¿a qué hora abre la panadería? At what time does the bakery open? And the person answers, a las 6:30. Okay, So again, an a qué hora question is very different from qué hora es. It wants to know when an event occurs. At what time does it occur? All right. Let's move on here. Okay, and let's see. And let's see here. Okay. Here is just some good vocabulary. As I told you, kind of the idea behind this chapter is for you to talk about things you do in your tiempo libre, in your free time. And please familiarize yourself with these different activities: eating, playing sports, talking on the phone, studying. Here we have somebody there singing in a chorus. It looks like she's reading. Take a look at these. Here we're cantar en el coro. Just look at these. And you can click on these and spend some time. Just familiarize yourself with the vocabulary. So when you see it on the test, you go, oh, I know what that is. Okay, let's move on. And here's some more activities. Again, spend some time with these activities. Bailar, to dance, ir a la playa. Look at your verb ir. Remember, your verb ir is irregular. Please know it. Yo voy, tú vas, él va, nosotros vamos, ellos van. To go to the movies, ir al cine, to go to the cinema. Ir de compras, to go shopping. Okay, ir de compras. And here are various activities: to go horseback riding, montar a caballo. Here's to play basketball, practice yoga. Okay, let's jugar videojuegos. Now you have a lot of vocabulary. You can talk about what you like to do in your free time with these verbs. Okay, let's move on and see if there's anything. Now here's some more expressions. When do you like to do certain things? So you might like to do things in the morning. You could say por la mañana, in the morning, or en la mañana. Por la tarde, or en la tarde, por la noche, or en la tarde, in the evening. You talk about things you like to do. Again, you want to be able to talk about things you like to do, maybe how frequently you like to do them, and when you like to do them. Okay. All right. And here's some more vocabulary. Take a look at these verbs. Almorzar, to have lunch. Asistir a clase. Please look at it. Does not mean anything to do with assist or help. It's to attend. And you attend to class. It's always followed by a. Cenar, to have dinner. Desayunar, to have breakfast. These are, again, daily routine activities, and they expect you to know these. Estar en casa means to be at home. Estudiar, to study. Leer un libro, to read a book. Ir, there's a verb ir, to go to classes. Ir is always followed by a. Ir is always. So I go to class is yo voy a clases. We go to class, vamos a clases. Okay, vamos al gimnasio. We go to the gym. Remember, a plus L, the definite article, it's masculine. L contracts. Okay, let's see if there is anything else here we need to look at. So be able to talk about your daily routine. Now, this is very important, okay? Here you have the days of the week, okay? Please be able to talk here about the days of the week, here on page 76, I believe. No, the days of the week, they're never capitalized like the months of the year. They're not capitalized. Please just learn them. Okay. The weekdays are the días entre semana, within the week. Los días entre semana. So the weekdays are lunes, Monday, martes, Tuesday, miércoles, Wednesday, jueves, Thursday, and viernes, Friday. What about the weekend? The weekend is el fin de semana, literally the end of week. El fin de semana, what are the days of the week? I'm sorry, what are the weekend days? They are sábado, Saturday, and domingo, Sunday. Now, here's a very important phrase. I want you to make sure you understand this, because you're going to be talking about your routine. You might be talking about your or somebody's schedule and on what day you do certain things. Okay, you should already be able to tell at what time you do things. Like, I study at 7. Yo estudio a las 7. We should be able to say that. But you also want to be able to tell me, what days do you study? All right. So if I want to say I'm studying at 7 o'clock on Monday, what is the word for on? It will be the definite article, el. So on Monday is now el lunes. So I study on Monday at 7 is yo estudio el lunes. Okay. El lunes. I'm studying on Monday a las 7 at 7 o'clock. What if it's something, an activity that you do regularly? Okay. You do it on a reoccurring basis. Like, I study on Mondays. How do I say on there? I use the plural definite masculine definite article, los. So yo estudio los lunes means I study on Mondays. Yo estudio el lunes means I'm just studying on Monday. Does everybody see this? Do not give me yo estudio en lunes, yo estudio en jueves. You never use en before a day of the week. It don't exist. Don't do it. So if we want to say on Wednesdays, el miércoles. I'm sorry. On Wednesday is el miércoles. On Wednesdays, recurring is los miércoles. So if I want to say that I study on Wednesdays in the evening, yo estudio los miércoles por la noche. And look at some of these examples here. Okay. Let's see what else. So again, please be careful with recognizing the difference between the question when working with the time, ¿qué hora es? Versus ¿a qué hora es? In English, we don't make this distinction. For example, if I want to ask you, what time is it right now? I will just ask you, what time is it? And then you would tell me, son las 7:30 at 7:30. You would tell me at 7:30. But if in English, if I ask you, what time is Spanish class? Look at how I asked it. The same. What time is Spanish class? In Spanish, we don't ask it that way. We would ask, because it's an event, we want to know the time at which an event occurs, or at the time at which you or someone is going to do something. We have to have at in it. And what is the word for at when you're using time? Ah. Please don't forget this. So the question would be, if I want to ask you, what time are you studying? I would say, ¿a qué hora estudias? If I want to ask you, what time are you going to dance? ¿A qué hora vas a bailar? Okay. But if I want to ask you, what time is it right now? I would just ask you, ¿qué hora es? There's no a. Now, if I ask you ¿qué hora es? If the time is between 2 and 12, you're always going to answer me back immediately with son. Son las 3, son las 7:30. If I ask you a question though, ¿a qué hora es? At what time is the event? or at what time are you going to study, or at what time are you going to dance, or at what time is he going to present the lesson, you never answer back with son. Never. Not for the purposes of this class anyway. So if I ask you, at what time is the Zoom meeting? Okay, and say the Zoom meeting's at 7. Okay, I would ask you, ¿a qué hora es? I'll make it in English, el Zoom meeting. ¿A qué hora es? I don't ask you qué hora es el Zoom meeting. I ask you, ¿a qué hora es el Zoom meeting? When you go back to answer me and you want to tell me it's 7 o'clock, okay, what time is the Zoom meeting? ¿A qué hora es el Zoom meeting? You answer me back, it's 7. It's at 7. You will answer back, es a las 7. Don't ever answer back an a question with son. And a lot of people do that. They'll answer back, son las 7. If you tell me son las 7, you're telling me right now on the clock it's 7 o'clock. I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you at what time is an event. So you have to answer me back. El Zoom meeting es a las 7, or just simply it's at 7, es a las 7. There are questions on your test. You need to master this and recognize the difference between a qué hora es and qué hora es. You need to differentiate the two. Okay, let's see if there's anything else here. That's, again, look over these phrases, be able to talk about yourself. And I looked at some of these, to go to the gym, to have breakfast, desayunar, to be at home, estar en casa. All right, let's move on here. Let's see. Okay, what is in this lesson? Outside of the time, what is this? The main part of chapter 3, outside of talking about different activities and being able to tell a time and the time at which you do certain activities or somebody does activities, you're going to learn how to conjugate regular verbs. Conjugate regular verbs. And here it starts in 3.1. We want to know how to conjugate regular verbs in Spanish. And all verbs in Spanish end in AR, ER, or IR. That's the infinitive or unconjugated form. Please learn this and know this. There's 3 categories of verbs in Spanish. They end in AR, ER, and IR. This is a blessing. In English, verbs can end in anything. But if we know we have an AR verb, it conjugates a certain way. An ER verb conjugates a certain way. And an IR verb conjugates a certain way. This is a blessing. Just learn how verbs conjugate in the present tense. And that's what we want to learn. So they're going to give us these verbs. I'm not going to follow their scheme completely, but trabajar is to work. And it's the to form because it's not conjugated. It's in its AR. Unconjugated in infinitive form. ER is the infinitive form. Leer, to read. It vivir is in its IR infinitive form. To live. Okay, let's take a look at these verbs. Okay, so verbs that end in AR, verbs that end in ER, and verbs that end in IR. Okay, so give me a second here, and I want to make sure first of all, before we look at how to conjugate regular AR, ER, and IR verbs, go back and review the verb ser. You had to know it to give the time, right? ¿Qué hora es? Son las 7. Review tener, the verb to have. Review estar, the verb to be. Okay, when we're telling how I feel, we're giving a temporary state, like an emotional state. And look at the verb ir, to tell, to go, the verb to go. These are all irregular. Make sure you can conjugate them. Okay. Now let's go to section 3.2, and I'm sorry that we are just jumping around here. I don't obviously like the way they presented things in this book completely, but we have to work with it. Okay, all right. So, um, how do we conjugate AR verbs? First of all, your book looks at the conjugation of AR, ER, and IR verbs, and they first look at how do you conjugate verbs with the subject pronouns when they are singular. And then in the next lesson, we'll look at how we conjugate verbs when the pronouns are plural. So what are the singular subject pronouns? Yo, I, tú, you, the familiar one, él, he, ella, she, and usted, you, the formal you. Okay, so how do we conjugate verbs? And give me a second here. And I want to make sure that what they're explaining to you. And so let's take a look. Okay, so if when you go to conjugate a verb in Spanish, okay, you've got to get the stem of the verb. And this may sound a little complicated, but it's actually very simple, and it's another blessing of the Spanish language. How do you get the stem of a verb in Spanish? You go and you look at the verb, you see if it's an AR, ER, or IR verb. You drop the ending. So if it's an AR verb, you drop the AR. If it's an ER verb, you drop the ER. If it's an IR verb, you drop the IR. Now you've got the stem. And then for each subject pronoun, you write out or speak out your stem. They're all going to have that same stem. What we need to learn here are what are the endings going to be. There's a different ending for each subject pronoun. And that's what we want to look at. Okay, so if your subject pronoun is yo or I, what ending do you put on the stem? You put on an O. Okay, that's as easy as can be. Whether it's an ER, AR, or IR verb. Okay. What if the subject is tú? Again, get the stem, drop the ER, AR, whatever the verb is. For AR verbs, what ending do you put on? AS. So let's take the verb practicar. So what's the stem of practicar? It's practic. What ending, how if I want to say you practice, I would say tú practicas. What if we have an ER or an IR verb? Like leer is an ER verb, IR is vivir is an IR verb. What do? We get the stem of the verb and we put an ES ending on. So let's take a look at the ER verb for leer. What is the stem of leer? Drop the ER, we get le. How would I say you read? I would say tú lees. That's the ending that goes on with the ER verbs. And it's also the same ending that goes on IR verbs. So how would I say you live? Well, I take the verb vivir, I drop the IR ending, and I get vive. So tú vives. As simple as that. Okay, and they actually did that here for you, Les. And for the AR verb, they use trabajar. Let's use trabajar. It's a very important verb. Trabajar. That's the infinitive. It's an AR verb. How would I say you work? I got to get the stem. I drop the AR. Tu trabajas. And then the AS ending. Tu trabajas. All right. And then let's look at the he and she forms of the verb. What if we have an AR verb? And we'll take trabajar since they did it here. Okay, so trabajar, we have to get the stem. It's trabaj. So he works would be él trabaja. You put an A ending on. What if it's an ER or IR verb? We put on an E ending. So let's take a look at the verb leer. Él lee. It's got two E's and just kind of all elides together. Él lee. What about vivir? I get the stem. It's vive. Él vive. vive. Okay. Just so you know, the where do you put the emphasis when you're pronouncing these? So you know, it goes on the second last syllable. So let's take a look at this one. Each vowel is a syllable here. So yo trabajo. Okay. Yo leo. Yo vivo. Tú trabajas. Okay. Tú lees. Tú vives. So your accentuation is not on the last syllable, it's on the second to last syllable. Okay. All right, now they break the verbs into the plural subject pronouns. So again, how do we do this? Again, I realize I'm going over a lot of material here, but it is very simple once you get the rules down. But let's take a look at it. Now we want to look at the plural subject pronouns. How do we conjugate AR, ER, and IR verbs that are regular with the plural subject pronouns? So what about nosotros? What do we do? Well, if we have an AR verb, we get the stem of the verb, whatever it is. Here they're using the verb cenar. They decided to use the verb cenar to have dinner. So what ending do they put on for an AR verb? For nosotros, amos. So if I want to say we have dinner, I'll take the verb cenar, I'll drop off the AR ending, and I'll get cen. What ending do I put on? Amos. Cenamos. We have dinner. What if I have an ER verb like comer, to eat? How do I, what ending do I put on the verb? I put on an emos, an EMOS ending. So if the verb ends in ER, I put emos on. So we have, we eat is, I have to get the stem from comer, it's com. So it's nosotros comemos. Not amos, but amos, because we have an ER verb. What if I have an IR verb? For an IR verb, we put on an IMOS, and that's not, I don't like how they wrote that there. It's an italicized I, it's emos, emos. And I just wanted to point out that ER and IR verbs conjugate exactly the same way with endings, except for nosotros. If we're using nosotros as our pronoun, we end on imos. And so let's do vivir. So nosotros vive is my stem, and I add on imos. Vosotros you can look at on your own. Again, it's not much used. And finally, let's look at our plural form. Ellos, they, and ustedes, you all. What about AR verbs? Well, if my verb is cenar, and I want to say they have dinner, ellos, and the stem will be cen, and my ending is an for an AR verb. Ellos cenan. What if I have an ER or an IR verb? My ending now will be not an, but en. So let me take comer. Ellos comen. What about vivir, an IR verb? Ellos viven. So again, please familiarize yourself with how you conjugate verbs in the present tense. Drop the AR, ER, IR ending and get your stem. We can all do that. You can all do that. What you need to remember is, oh, yo is my subject pronoun. I have an AR verb. What ending goes on it? Oh, my subject pronoun now is ellos, and I have an ER verb. What ending goes with it? You need to learn those, and you learn them by going through them and working with them. Okay. So you can work with filling out a chart like this. They give you an AR verb, ER verb, and an IR verb. Remember, asistir means to attend, and it's always followed by an A. I attend Spanish classes. Yo asisto a la clase de español. Make sure you can get these, what we call the stem. For bailar, it's bail. I drop the AR. For correr, it's cor. I drop the, I'm sorry, it's cor. I drop the ER, and for to attend, asistir, it's assist. And just add on your endings. Okay. Okay, and then let me see anything else here. There's a couple more things I wanted to point out here to you. And let me see. Okay, in section 3.3, I don't know why they give us these right now, but there are some irregular verbs in Spanish. And remember how we learned how to find the stem of a verb? We dropped the AR, ER, and IR. Well, some verbs are called stem changers. And these verbs have two stems, and you must learn these. Once you master this, it's very easy. So stem changing verbs have two stems. They have the original stem, which you all know how to form. You drop the AR, ER, and IR ending. But then they get a second stem. And there's not many of these that we're going to be working with. You just need to identify these. And there's three classifications of stem changers. So let's get familiar with them and so that you can start working with them. Okay. The first class of stem changers, the O, if there's an O in the stem, the O will change to UE. It goes from O to we. UE is pronounced we. All right. So, and here's an example. This is the verb poder. Poder means to be able to. It's the verb can. Unfortunately, English is a strange language. We say to be able to, but we say I can, they can. Or we could also say I am able to, but we really don't call the verb can. But poder is the verb to be able to or can. So how do stem changers work? Okay, I told you stem changers have two stems. So look at this verb poder. Okay, the first stem you already know how to get. It would be what? You drop the ER, so you'd get pod, P-O-D. But it's a stem changer. And you already know this because you're given it. The stem changes, the O of the stem changes to UE. So our new stem is puede. Now, the important thing is once you get your new stem, that's going to be the stem that you're going to be using in 90% of your conjugations. That's the main stem we want. So once you derive that stem change, you've got a lot of the conjugation over with. So let's see how it works. So, and again, let me see if I can find a better example here. Otherwise, I will go back to the one we were just working with. And I don't particularly like the way your book presents this, but let's take a look. So stem changing verbs have two stems. The first one we said was pod. We dropped the ER, but we're not going to use that one. The one we're going to use is the O will go to UE. Now we've got puede is our new stem. And so with your new stem will always be used with yo puede, tú puede, él, ella, usted puede. Always. Okay. Now, where it will never be used with nosotros or vosotros, you're going to use pod here. And that's why we keep it, because we use it with nosotros. And in Spain, they also use it with vosotros. What about down here, ellos and ellas? We use puede again. So puede is our most important verb. Pod we really keep for nosotros. Now, how do I conjugate the rest of this verb? You already know. It's an ER verb. It's the present tense. You know the endings, 3 ER verbs in the present tense. Yo takes O, tú takes ES, él, ella, usted take E, nosotros take hemos, EMOS, and ellos takes N, EN. So, yo puedo, tú puedes, él puede, nosotros podemos, no stem change, and ellos pueden. Yes, there is a stem change. Okay. And let's take a look at the verb poder. It's used all the time, and you should get a feeling for it. It means to be able or can. Okay, it's a powerful verb, as they say, a typical verb. It's used a lot. And it's often used with another verb. I can eat. I can play tennis. It's about, or I can't eat. I can't go. You use it with other verbs. When you use poder with another verb, never conjugate the second verb. Leave it in the infinitive. Okay? So I can eat is yo puedo comer. Not yo puedo como. Okay? Let's take a look. A veces puedo estudiar en la biblioteca. Sometimes I can study in the library. See how it's used with other verbs? It's often used as a question. Can you do this? Can you help me that? Can you tell me this? Can you do this for me? Puedes. If you're going to ask somebody that you're familiar with, you're going to use the to form. Puedes llegar a las 11. Can you arrive at 11? Very easy. Graciela, the young girl Graciela, puede correr. Graciela can run very fast, muy rápido. So you should feel comfortable using this verb. Okay. And they go through poder. Okay, what else do they do? There's 3 more verbs they want you to know that have stem changes. Not all verbs have stem changes. Very few do. But of the O verbs, here they are. These are the ones I want you to know. Almorzar, is to have lunch. The first stem is almorz, which we're going to, no stem change. We use that with nosotros. The new stem change, the O of almorz goes to almuerz. Where the UE becomes ue, ue. Dormir, to sleep. Okay. So dorm is the stem that your first stem. The new stem is duerma. Yo duermo, tú duermas. And soñar, to dream. So soñ is the first stem, and that goes only with nosotros and vosotros. The one we're interested in, though, that we're going to use with yo, tú, él, ella, usted, and ellos is going to be the way one. Sueña. Yo sueño. Tú sueñas. Okay, and look through these and spend some time with them. They're actually very, very simple. Okay. Here's a great question here. ¿Qué puede hacer? Okay. What, first it asks, ¿quién puede? Who can? What can he or she do? Remember, hacer. ¿Qué puede hacer? What can he do? ¿Qué puede hacer? What can she do? Okay. All right. And let me see if there's anything else. Okay. Let's see. Now let's go to structure, estructura. Hold on a second. Let me make sure that we, let me see, give me a second here. I want to just finish off here, and there's a couple of things I want to point out. Here they give you a schedule. Make sure you can read a schedule about things somebody likes to do and the time at which they do it. Let me see. Okay. I'm going to bring your attention to this reading here. and it's on page 85. It's on Cultura, el Café de Nicaragua y El Salvador. Look through that, get familiar with the coffee culture of Central America and what it means. It's very important to the economies of Central America. As Guatemala, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, particularly Guatemala and Costa Rica, are very well known for and El Salvador as well, very well known for their coffee. The people that control and run the coffee industry are very powerful politically and economically in these countries. And let's face it, a lot of us depend on coffee, and a lot of our great coffee comes from this area of the world. Please read through this and make sure you're familiar with it. Okay. And then let's see. So we looked at the verbs where the stem changing verbs, and where O goes to UE. And let me just see if there's anything else here to point out. Okay, and then let's go to 3.4 now. Okay, all right. And again, I'm having a little trouble with my thing here. Okay, let's look at this question. ¿A qué hora es esa clase? Okay, so what is this question asking you? All right, it's got the a in it, okay? It does not say qué hora es, it's a qué hora es. So it wants to know at what time does a certain event occur. So they want to know a qué hora es, what time is the class, okay? So you'd answer back, la clase es a whatever time. La clase es a las 2 o a las 3. Okay, you would never answer back la clase son las 3 if it's at 3. So be careful with this. Okay, what they want to talk about here also is demonstrative adjectives. What are demonstrative adjectives? How do you say this when something is close to you? You point to it, this right here, or that over there. And the plural form. These here, those there. That's all. That's all they want you to learn. These are called the demonstrative adjectives. And esa means is that. So a qué hora is that class. Esa means that. It's demonstrative. Okay, here they give you a schedule. Be able to read it, look at the days of the week, and you should be able to tell me at what time certain classes occur. Okay, okay. Like what time is physics class? La clase de física es los lunes y jueves. It's on lunes y jueves. Es los lunes y los jueves a las 7. Or de las 7 a las 8, from 7 to 8. Okay, so take a look at those. And let me see, give me a second. Let's learn the demonstrative adjectives, okay? And what is going to impact you here? They're adjectives, and I'm sorry, but remember, adjectives have to agree in gender and number with the words that they refer to. I've been through this. We don't have this in English. This causes, again, trouble for English speakers. And that's why it's important to know the gender of the object you're referring to. If you want to say this house or that dog or these cars, it's going to affect the way you say it. So let's take a quick look. If the word that you're referring to is masculine and singular, and you also have to adjust the adjectives to whether they're singular or plural. So if we have a singular masculine item and you want to say this book, look at it here. It's este libro. Okay, that's how we say this. What if it's plural? You want to say these books. Now, English does have plural adjectives, actually. We generally don't, but these are throwbacks to our Germanic roots. And so we have these books. We don't say this book, this books. We do have a plural form, but in Spanish, we do as well, of course. So, este libro is this book. Estos libros are these books. Estos libros. They're close to you. Okay. Now, and then what about, okay, so let's take a look about what if we have a feminine thing? Clase, we know is feminine. So if I want to say this class, it's esta clase, not este, but esta, because it's feminine. And if we have plural, it's estas classes, these classes. Let me see, give me a chance here. Okay. Okay. So make sure that you are familiar with these pronouns. You will be asked about them, and you're going to need them. Okay. And then finally, what else did I want to show you? Okay, real quickly. I didn't finish these. So I gave you how to say this book and this class and the plural, these books and these classes. What if I want to say that book and those? So if you want to say that, okay, it's going to be, okay, you want to say that book, okay, so it'll be ese libro and those books, okay, esos libros, esos, okay, so we've got ese and esos. That book and those books. And finally, we have, what about that class? Now it's feminine. So it's going to be esa clase y esas clases. Okay. So we have ese libro and esos libros. Ese libro and esos libros. All right, those books. So make sure you know how to say this if something is masculine, all right, like this car, este carro, or those cars, estos carros. Make sure you're able to say that car, okay, that car would be ese carro, and those cars, esos carros. And class again, this class, esta, and those, this class, esta clase, and these classes, estas clases. And finally, that class would be esa, and those classes, esas. And I think that does it for chapter 3. Okay. So good luck with your studies. Just make sure you go through these materials. I have videos posted and PowerPoints in addition to what appears here in your textbook.